I've covered talking about a lot of collectible items on my channel, and I know recently in the past years that the mini console trend has continued. There's been several mini console and mini computer collectibles that have came out and have been fairly popular with people and gamers. And you're gonna have your opinions on these. I've discussed them. There are some good ones, and there's been some ones that have been just so-so. But in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you kind of my wish list of 10 mini console or computers that I would like to be made in the future. Now, I am fully aware of licensing issues, the people that might be fighting over the rights of certain games, and I understand why these haven't came out. But I do think that some of them will come out. This is just a wish list. I have no information about where these companies are with producing these. This is just kind of a fun list. I know you're going to have your favorites, and yeah, you're going to have your opinions about mini consoles. For some people, they want them to be a full-fledged experience. I'm kind of coming from the perspective of, collecting for some of these is very expensive now, and I think that's why they're popular, because going out and trying to pursue original hardware right now is very expensive for certain classic computers and consoles. These mini consoles offer a legal way to kind of capture some of the experience without breaking the bank typically. And so here we go. I'm going to give you my list. Your list is going to vary depending on what you grew up with and what you experienced. And I definitely want to hear in the comments below what you think should be added or what should be made and why. So first up is kind of an oddball one, more obscure, and that's the Magnavox Odyssey 2. Now, there was some cool games that we never got here in the States. It'd be nice to get a mini console representing this game system that not many people have experienced. It was an early competitor with consoles such as like the Atari 2600. It wasn't as popular. It had some primitive graphics, but we didn't get some games here, and I would really like to see a microconsole representing that classic system, one that I hold near and dear to my heart. I've covered it on my channel. I've even covered homebrews on it, and that is a special one for me. Next one is something that I think Sega fans can agree upon, and that's the Sega Master System. And I think that Genesis kind of overshadows Sega's legacy on what they did right with classic consoles. But the Master System had its own library of games. It was very popular in specific regions. And while it wasn't as popular here in the States, I do think there is enough popularity there to make a micro console and to celebrate that series of consoles that was just popular with some people. And I know there's enthusiasts and fans out there would love to see it. And Sega is actually, of all the companies I discussed today, they're actually in a pretty good spot where they could actually make something like this. So Sega, if you're listening, hey, I think you should go for it. Anyways, next up, we definitely can't forget about classic computers. I just covered the Amiga 500 Mini on my channel. That was a great little classic mini computer, and it just plays the games mostly. And I know there's going to be people out there that want the full-fledged computer experience. But, I think that there's some other classic computers that should be made in a micro console option. And, for one, Atari 8-bit computer line is something that gets overlooked all the time. There's big fans of classic computers out there. I have a buddy that's a huge fan of the Atari 8-bit line, and he's constantly showing me games. I know that the Atari Age community is very active, and I would love to see it. So for sure, I would love to see a little mini console playing some of those 8-bit games. You always hear about the Atari 2600 and even Lynx, but that 8-bit line was fantastic. It was well over around a decade plus of support, and even now there's people still making games for that classic computer. Awesome. The other classic computer line that Atari is known for is the Atari ST, and there's fans of that, and I know the Amiga was more popular in certain regions, but the Atari ST would be another micro console that for games for sure that could be made, and I think it would be well received with fans. You know, another classic computer that gets overlooked. I think there's people out there that want this to happen. I know for sure I want it to be a reality, but you know, who knows who owns all the rights to those games. But you know, I think that is yet another pocket of gaming that is underrepresented. Next up is the 3DO, and I know that there are people out there that think that there isn't any good games on the 3DO. I disagree. I've covered some of the good games on my channel. I've talked about 3DO in a few videos that I've done. In fact, all these consoles that I'm talking about today, I've done videos on it. I try to have a wide variety on my channel, talking about things that are less represented in the classic gaming community, and 3DO definitely comes to mind. And it would be a fun one, as that's fairly expensive to collect for as well. And there's lots and lots of early 3D games that I think would make for a great micro console experience, and one that can be emulated. And so, you know, the 3DO for me was a fun console to collect for, and you know, it represents that early, you know, I would say early to mid 90s, and it definitely has the look and feel in those games. Following that up, definitely Sega Saturn. Sega Saturn is so expensive to collect for and has a ton of awesome games. And I know Sega has the rights to some of those. Another classic mini console that I think Sega could do. And the reason why I want these to be made, because I don't think they're as expensive to make as a new console. They're essentially taking emulation and a cheap computer and giving collectors something to collect and play. And I know there's going to be people out there, well, I'm just going to play it on a Pi. Well, go do that, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But for collectors out there, they want to have something to represent and share with others, or show others, or play on, something that represents the console that they grew up with, the games that they remember, and a legal option for people that want to go that route. And so there's nothing wrong with emulation. There's nothing wrong with playing on a Raspberry Pi. But there's other people that would want these mini consoles, such as myself, as a collectible, as something just to represent something of yesteryear. So definitely Sega Saturn, huge library and amazing games, especially imports. It would be neat to see that. Next one, and again, I understand why some of these haven't been made yet, whether it's emulation's not perfect, or there's a licensing issue. And I think there's one Nintendo console that many people would like to see, and that's the Nintendo 64. Nintendo 64 had some top-tier amazing games. Some of its library was but I've talked about N64. I like the Nintendo 64. I like the console. I think it does have some good games. It would be great to see a mini version of that. I know why Nintendo hasn't done it, but it would be great to see that in the future. And hopefully they know that there's people out there that would love to play on a mini console. I know they're offering Nintendo 64 games on the Switch, but you know, why not? Why not make that micro console and offer something as an affordable collectible? They've done other collectibles. Why not do that? For sure. Next up is one I've talked about before, and that's the Dreamcast. And I think there were many Sega fans, you know, the Dreamcast kind of ended Sega's console legacy, I think, on a high note, even though it wasn't as successful as, you know, they wanted. It was only on the market a few years. But I think with the ongoing support, fans have really enjoyed and appreciated that last console. You know, there's been several homebrew games made for the Sega Dreamcast, and I think it left it ended Sega's console legacy on a positive note. All right, next up is a big one, and I know that Sony's first mini console was kind of a dud, but I definitely think a PlayStation 2 Mini should be made. I think Sony can offer this as an affordable collectible. You know, the PS5 is still fairly difficult to find. It's very expensive, and I know that because of the chip shortage, many of these haven't been made yet. But once that subsides, I definitely think a PS2 Mini would be something that many people would love and appreciate. The PS2 being the biggest selling console of all time, I think it would be a great mini console to offer, offering a collection of games, you know, that Sony owns the rights to. It would be great. And I know that emulation is something that with some of these, it has to be figured out. For others, it has been figured out. But I think Sony could learn from their first mistake with the PS1 Classic and, you know, make a PlayStation 2 Mini, and I think it would be a lot better. Fingers crossed. I think for Sony fans out there, they would love to see that. Finally, there's Microsoft, and, you know, the Xbox is something that I think there's many people out there that was one of their first home consoles, and, you know, Microsoft really did a success by launching the Xbox. It had some problems. It wasn't perfect. It definitely lost to the PlayStation 2, but it started the journey where Microsoft is now. And I know that they're offering original Xbox games on the Xbox Series X, but it would be really cool. Now, Microsoft is another company that has done some collectibles and things on the side. You know, they even had that Xbox Series X fridge. So why not make a mini console of the original Xbox? I think that'd be a cool collectible and something I do see Microsoft possibly doing that. Who knows? But it'd be neat, especially with that Duke controller. That would be a cool thing to throw in. And I think there'd be some fans of that, you know, seeing and playing some original Xbox games. That would be sweet and something I think the Xbox fans would definitely purchase. If I was going to pick an 11th one and of a console that's very expensive to collect for, it wasn't popular and kind of failed, and that's the Atari Jaguar. But, you know, emulation has gotten better. I know it's not perfect. There's some issues with it, and not all games work. The Atari Jaguar would be another one that I think there would be many people out there that would love to see. And maybe for some of these projects that I discussed today, maybe it's more on a hobbyist level, where maybe it's a forum or someone is making these in a small batch and less on a corporate level and more on kind of the hobbyist side. I would love to see that. Maybe some of these have already been made that way and I don't know about. Put in the comments below. But I just want to say thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking about video games in general. I love classic video games. I talk about modern games and show modern games too, but I like to just talk and play games and share my information with you. So what did you think today? What are the mini consoles that you would like to see made in the future? And thank you so much for coming to my channel. You folks are wonderful and beautiful, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and click the bell as I'm uploading videos every week. This is the Immortal John Hancock, and you have a good day.